Well, hello from Bethel Baptist Chapel in Hollywell. We're entering the last night for our study through the Old Testament. If we get through it, hopefully we have enough time. We're going to be looking at three prophets, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, to wrap things up here. So hopefully you have your book from Stringfellow. And let's dive into it tonight. So the book of Haggai. These three, Haggai, Zechariah, and Malachi, are known in some circles as the post-captivity prophets. They were God's messengers during the time of the restoration of Jerusalem, rebuilding of the temple, rebuilding of the wall around Jerusalem. And the main appeal of Haggai and Zechariah was to inspire the Jews to finish building the temple. They arrived in the land, and they settled in, they rejoiced a bit, and then they just got comfortable. And they needed to continue to finish the temple. They'll need the urging of Haggai first and Zechariah second in that matter. When we move on to Malachi, basically we're going to see a time when sin and apostasy of the people are putting them in danger of God's judgment, and they need spiritual revival. That had happened before, but indeed they talk here about the spiritual revival of the return to the holy city had turned to spiritual coldness, and it seems significant that the last word of the Old Testament is the word curse. I had to look it up, and yes, in the Hebrew it's the same. So they're kind of an interesting way to leave things for 4 centuries until Christ came. But Haggai, he deals with a real situation in the lives of the people. Again, the remnant came back under Zerubbabel. They returned to Jerusalem and Judea under the proclamation of the Medes and the Persians. And they began to neglect the things of the Lord and spend their time on their own houses, on their own businesses. They forsook the rebuilding of the temple. And for 14 years, they've been backslidden. And so to this kind of situation, the prophet Haggai was sent with God's message. He's among the first group to go to Jerusalem with Zerubbabel. We'll see this in Ezra 2:2. And he was probably born in Babylon during the captivity. One of these things to flag the central message of Haggai we'll find in Haggai 1:7 and 8. I'll just read that and we'll tap on it again. Thus says the Lord of hosts, consider your ways. Go up to the mountain and bring wood and build a house, and I will take pleasure in it, and I will be glorified, saith the Lord, and that house being the temple. So as we look at the book of Haggai, we'll see 4 sermons. The first sermon is a sermon of reproof. This will be in Haggai 1. He gives us some time frames to kind of consider what's going on, and that was between the 1st and 24th of September in the year. And he does that. The second sermon will be one of encouragement. And that will be the first part of Haggai 2. And that will be on October 21st. The third sermon will be a blessing. Haggai chapter 2, the second part. And that'll be December 24th. And then the fourth sermon will be one of promise. Haggai 2, 20 to 23. And on December 24th as well. So we'll see as we go along that there will be dates for these. We'll have time codes for that. I think someone made reference to the commentators that Haggai would have been using the system of the Babylonians. They did time a little bit differently. So if you do a detailed study, just be aware of these things. So the first sermon, a sermon of reproof in Haggai 1, is basically to reprove the people for their neglect in building the Lord's house. They went back, and one of the chief things to do was to do that, and they postponed what they had gone to Jerusalem to accomplish. It's a tough way to start the book. Chapter 1, verse 2 says, "Thus speaketh the Lord of hosts, saying," this people say, God's reporting what they're saying, "the time has not come, the time that the Lord's house should be built." And the response to that is, consider your ways and get back building it. And the people were satisfied to sit in their homes and wait until the time came, until they felt like doing it. What a modern message. We love to rest on our eternal security sometimes. And to just wait and not do work. I like his thought here. Sometimes we need to work and wait. Yes, there are times we need to wait. But there's always something we can be doing in ministry while we're waiting. And yes, we may not want to take big steps, but there's certainly always something to be done. The second sermon is one of encouragement, Haggai 2, 1 through 9. And he declares three great facts. The first, he reminds them of Jehovah's covenant with Israel and his faithfulness to that covenant. Verse 5 of chapter 2, it says, according to the word that I covenanted with you when ye came out of Egypt, so my spirit remaineth among you. Fear ye not. The covenant wasn't one that you would stop being my people. It was blessings and cursings. And they were his people. They agreed to be his people. That was ratified at the foot of Mount Sinai. And God is saying, my covenant, you think, I don't change. I don't change like you guys. When I say something, I will do it. So the second is the Spirit of God remains with them, and that they should have no fear. Whatever was holding them up from doing what they're supposed to be doing, if it was fear-based, they need to be reminded that God not only was for them, but wanted them to do that. And then, of course, rebuilding the temple is the subject. And then third, God says that there should be a great shaking of nations at the time of the tribulation. We've been studying that on Sunday evenings. And that one who is the desire of all nations shall come, and that is Christ. Verse 9, now let's read that. That's always...
The glory of this latter house shall be greater than that of the former, saith the Lord of hosts. And in this place will I give peace, saith the Lord of hosts.
Okay, so that was one of the things when they look at it. In one sense, it was not as fancy as the Solomon's temple. And some wept at that. We'll see that when they finally get done rebuilding. We saw that actually in Ezra as we went through that. But the reality is there's going to be something greater, because someone greater is going to be there. Yes. So these are things which should inspire us as well. A covenant, Spirit's presence, and a promised return of the Lord. I think that's pretty good, although we are not a covenant people. We are under the covenant of grace. And that is the testament or the covenant that we live under now. And we certainly have the abiding presence of the Spirit, which is not something that the Old Testament people have, and we have certainly still have the promised return of our Lord. So the third sermon, the blessing. The people were to ask the priest concerning the things of the law of Moses. Verse 11. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, ask now the priest concerning the law, saying, well, I'll just leave that there. So the holy cannot, a little bit of God's economy here, the holy cannot make the unholy holy by contact, but unholiness is communicated by contact. We'll find that, verses 12 and 13. Anyone want to read that?
Then said Haggai, if one that is unclean by a dead body touch any of these, shall it be unclean? And the priest answered and said, it shall be unclean. So that, and he actually verse 12 as well. So the uncleanliness can be passed on, cleanliness is not. And he applies it to the Jews. Though they returned to the land and rebuilt the temple, their hearts were still far from God, verse 14. And God judged them because their hearts were not changed. And the kind of spoken thing at this point here is they will rebuild the temple under that leadership. But their attitudes, they still have some heart problems. Verses 15 through 17. And now I pray you consider from this day and upward, from before a stone was laid upon a stone in the temple of the Lord, since those days were when one came to a heap of 20 measures, but there were but 10. One came to the press vat to draw out 50 vessels out of the press, but there were but 20. I smote you with blasting and with mildew and with hail and all the labors of your hands, and yet ye turned not to me, saith the Lord. And what he's saying there is, as they neglected the things of God, God held his blessing from the productiveness of the land and the things they're doing. They're not getting oil that they should be getting, they're not getting the food they're getting from the land for their labors. And because and this will be the message of
certainly of Malachi as well. So God says, consider why that is, that God would bless them now because they had obeyed it, and he would bless because of his grace. And so, fourth sermon then will be a sermon of promise, Haggai 2:20 through 23. And this message is directed to Zerubbabel, the governor of Judah. And I think you may talk about this a little bit. The message is the same as in verses 6 and 7. And it speaks of the final purpose of God. A Gentile power will come to an end. In that day, the Lord will make Zerubbabel a signet, a sign of authority, a guarantee of the greater David. Excuse me. In that promise that one from the line of David, who Zerubbabel was. He was a descendant of David. And it points to Messiah. Zerubbabel was honored by a place in both genealogies of Christ. We'll find him in Matthew and in Luke. And Christ is truly the son of Zerubbabel as well as the son of David. They're both in that family line. But the Davidic portion is why they will receive their blessing plus the grace of God. So Zerubbabel was and is a signet prefiguring Christ. He's that representative of something greater coming. Christ is the greater son and the antitype of David and Zerubbabel. It shall be a signet of Jehovah, whereby he will imprint his will, his perfect ideal upon all nations. So, let's see. From the moment of obedience, God blesses each of us. And so, the challenge for us is, are we building spiritual houses of the Lord, or his church made of living stones? Is that what it's supposed to be? Or are we neglecting that? And in all the things we do here, we try to build up this chapel, this local body, so it can reach and fulfill the call that's put on our lives. That's kind of a full gallop through it. Let's roll into Zechariah and give my nose a break here. All right. So Zechariah and Haggai were contemporaries. Ezra 5:1 let me turn there. Ezra, Nehemiah, Esther. And that's going to be when the kind of the work gets started up again. They get down, they get frustrated, and they stop working. In Ezra 5:1 it says, Then the prophets Haggai, the prophet, and Zechariah, the son of Iddo, prophesied unto the Jews that were in Judah and Jerusalem in the name of the God of Israel, even unto them. And then we'll see, then rose up Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, and this will come up later, and Yeshua, the son of Jozadak. And sometimes he's called Joshua, the priest, but we'll see him also as we move through this. Okay, so we can also see in Haggai 1:1 and Zechariah 1:1. Let's get to Zechariah 1:1. But we see that, don't we? You'll see Zechariah in Haggai 1:1, but Zechariah 1:1. In the 8th month of the 2nd year of Darius came the word of the Lord to Zechariah, the son of Berechiah, the son of Iddo, the prophet, saying, and it turns out, we'll talk about it here, he's in a priestly line. He's a prophet, and we'll see that, but it also means Zechariah was of the family of Aaron. So that is kind of important. We have a prophet, we have a priest. They're leading the charge to rebuilding the temple. So from the time of Zechariah and Haggai, the priesthood takes the lead in the nation. The history of God's people falls into 3 main periods. Now we still see Zerubbabel there, but it seems when things are happening, the priests are leading it. As you read through Ezra and Nehemiah, and now in these things. So he breaks history of Israel into these 3 periods, from Moses to Samuel, Israel under judges. Then they ask for a king. So from Saul to Zedekiah. It's kind of nice that Zedekiah with a Z is the last king of Israel. Makes it easy to remember. Israel would be under kings. And I would say active kings with a proper monarchy. when they came back, even though Zerubbabel was in the line of David, it wasn't really the same thing. Then so from Yeshua to 70 AD, Israel will be under priests. Again, Yeshua is Joshua, that priest that we tapped on there in Ezra 2:2 and Ezra 3:2. We'll see him in Haggai 1:1. He's also spoken of here. Haggai, not Zechariah. We'll see that priest also called out. That kind of threw me for a loop there for a minute. Yeshua is using Christ's name, but it is the same name, but it's pointing to this particular priest. That's the son of Josadak. So I guess that's a way of looking at the history of Israel. We might break it down into more pieces. And of course, at 70 AD, the temple is destroyed, so kind of the priesthood is scattered. There is no place for them to carry out the office of priest. All right, so the prophecies. So within the book of Zechariah, there are more prophecies of Christ than in any other prophetic book except Isaiah. And we'll just look at some of these, and we'll be limited for time, so we'll only look at a few of them in detail. But it's a great start, certainly for a personal study, and as you study the book in more detail. So it's good that he shows a prophecy and then a fulfillment. So we see that the coming Messiah will be a servant in Zechariah 3:8. That'll be fulfilled in Matthew 12:18. We'll see Christ as a servant. Let's do that. Let's read these, and then let's at least do this one list here. So Zechariah 3:8 says, "Hear now, O Joshua the high priest, thou and thy fellows that sit before thee, for they are men wondered at. For behold, I will bring forth my servant, the branch." Does anyone want to grab Matthew and run with the New Testament?
"Behold, my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved, in whom my soul is well pleased. I shall put my spirit upon him, and he shall show judgment to the Gentiles." Okay,
so he's called the branch in Zechariah 3:8 and Zechariah 6:12, but we'll see this in Luke 1:78. Through the tender mercy of our God, whereby the dayspring from on high hath visited us. Really? Dayspring are sun rising or branch. I didn't bring up a Greek New Testament here, but that dayspring can be translated branch. Okay. King priest, Zechariah 6:13. If someone's going in Matthew 6:20, we do this. 6:13.
"Even he shall build the temple of the Lord, and he shall bear the glory, and shall sit and rule upon his throne, and he shall be a priest upon his throne, and the counsel of peace shall be between them both."
Sure sounds like a visible return, doesn't it? Matthew 21:4. No, excuse me, Hebrews 6:20.
"Whither the forerunner is for us entered, even Jesus, made an high priest, forever after the order of Melchizedek."
There you go.
Oh, you want to go through to 7:1? Oh yeah. "For this Melchizedek, king of Salem, priest of the Most High God, who met Abraham returning from the slaughter of the kings, and blessed him."
Yeah. All right, as a lowly king, Zechariah 9 and 10. And 9 is, "Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout out, daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, thy king cometh unto thee. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding upon an ass, and upon a colt, the foal of an ass." And I guess verse 10, "And I will cut off the chariot." Is that right? Mm-hmm. Yep. "And I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim, and the horse from Jerusalem. And the battle bow shall be cut off, and he shall speak peace unto the heathen. And his dominion shall be from sea even to sea, and from river even to the ends of the earth."
Matthew 21:4 and 5. All this was done that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophet, saying, Tell ye the daughters of Zion, Behold, thy king cometh unto thee, weak and meek, and sitting on an ass, and a colt of the foal of an ass.
And certainly that's a central part of the Christmas story, the Easter story, as the disciples learn and continue to learn exactly who Jesus is, to fetch that foal. We'll just read. I tell you what. Let's keep pressing on here. But he'll be betrayed. His hands will be pierced. He'll be the smitten shepherd. In fact, this will be quoted back to in his second coming. Is prophesied. That's the only prophecy that's yet to come, as we've been studying on Sunday night. The central truth for the book, he'll take from chapter 1, verse 14. So the angel that communed with me said unto me, Cry thou, saying, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I am jealous for Jerusalem and for Zion with a great jealousy. That kind of dualistic use there of the Hebrew, pointing to the same place, though. That group of people will be faithful to him ultimately. So the structure of the book, we'll see a breakdown into 3 chunks: the night visions, the 4 messages, and the prophetic burdens. We'll tap on these for the sake of time. But the night visions, so here's he's going to give us 7 visions. Some students say there are 7 visions, some say 8, others 10. I think one can remember them best if we separate the visions, and when we do, there's 10. And so we'll look at them briefly, kind of underlining that, each vision. So the rider, the red horse, and the meaning is going to be, God is jealous for Jerusalem, and judgment is to fall upon the nations for his abuse, for the abuse of his covenant people. So that coming judgment. 4 horns, we often see horns are symbolic of power. And here these will be symbolic of the 4 nations that had scattered Israel, namely Babylon, Medo, Persia, Greece, and Rome. To come is a prophetic book. 4 carpenters. They're instruments of judgment upon the 4 nations. And as we read this, we'll get that. The man with the measuring line, that is to be measured out. Jerusalem is not to be measured as a man would measure, but the Lord himself will be a wall around the glorious city. And that is where God's true protection is, not in structures. So Joshua, we've seen this high priest again. And the vision pictures the removing of iniquity and the future glory of Israel. It'll have the filthy garments removed and a mitre placed upon his head with clean clothes as we read through that. But this is looking ahead to that future glory. The golden candlestick and 2 olive trees. And so God will rebuild his temple and shall be a witness in the power of that. Flying scroll, Zechariah 5, 1 through 4. When God builds his temple, as in that last vision, the word will go forth to judge. And the scroll is the word of God. God will complete the writing of his word in a few more centuries. The ephah, the woman in the ephah, a measuring container, and a symbol of trade, teaches that all corruption, all against God, should go to Babylon, the city of sin. Wow. The 4 chariots, these picture the judgments of the Lord upon the nations. And be good parallel reading for Revelation and working through that. The symbolic crowning of Joshua. And again, this is a vision of the second coming of Christ. And he sees in this the unifying idea in all these visions is that which is expressed in the central message, I am jealous for Jerusalem. I am returned to Jerusalem.
Is there any significance given to the fact that in the rider on a red horse and the myrtle tree, seen in the myrtle trees? Is there anything significant about myrtle?
Can't answer that right off the top of my head. Let's see. Zechariah 1:8.
I saw by nature a man riding on a red horse, and he stood among the myrtle trees that were in the bottom behind it, the red horses speckled and white. And then it goes on later on, it mentions them again.
I would have to dig into that. No, that's you like myrtle trees?
I just wondered.
Curious. I am sure myrtle trees that were in the bottom. So is he thinking of a particular area, around Jerusalem, and it was set up high? Was there an area below there that was lined with myrtle trees at the time? I don't know.
Okay, all right.
I will take that for action.
He sorted the pomegranates for me.
Okay. Dashing on to the four messages. The four messages we'll find in Zechariah support the central message of Zechariah. God's purpose for Jerusalem is unchanged by any ritual or form. And he was and is a jealous God that is jealous for our faithfulness to him with great jealousy. Also, I like it for his people. And watch out if God's people are being attacked wrongfully. He will defend them, but also he has allowed judgment to come on them as they wandered away from him as a warning to come back. So these are messages which teach that worship is a matter of the heart. It's so good. Be good to read all those right now, but just remember that as you're reading through it. And then prophetic burdens. And the first burden will be found in chapters 9 through 11. And here we see the first coming of Christ in Zechariah 9:9. That's a good place to go. Let's tap on that. Rejoice. Oh, we just read that. Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. And Christ will come that first time as the lowly king. Chapter 10 will be a picture of the covenant people scattered and finally restored in their land. Chapter 11 will depict the first coming of Christ and the rejection of him as Messiah. Note especially Zechariah 11:13 compared to Matthew 27:9. It'll probably sound very familiar when we read it.
And the Lord said unto me, cast it unto the potter, a goodly price for the prize of that I will prize out of them. And he took 30 pieces of silver and cast them to the potter in the house of the Lord.
So we'll see that that hint to Judas's betrayal coming up, Matthew 27:9. Did somebody go up there?
Yeah. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, and they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him that was valued, whom they of the children of Israel did value. So this will also link over to Jeremiah as well, as we're looking for a link there. So then the second burden then, these chapters 12 through 14 is one prophecy. And the third, the theme here is going to be the return of Christ and the establishment of the kingdom on earth. And the order of the events are the siege of Jerusalem, Battle of Armageddon, grace of God and revelation of Christ, to the house of David, godly sorrow for rejecting Messiah at the first advent, the cleansing fountain that opened to Israel. And then the summary of these events in chapters 13 and 14, or verses 13 through 14. He especially points out Zechariah, because then we get Dave Moore did a lot of quoting out of Zechariah, didn't he? But Zechariah 14:4, and his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east, and the Mount of Olives shall cleave in the midst thereof toward the east and toward the west. There shall be a very great valley, and half of the mountain shall remove toward the north, and half of it toward the south. And yes, he'll split the mount when he comes, and that is his second coming. The first and second advents are spoken of in the last chapters of 9 through 14, with no reference to this age of the church. The church is a mystery in the Old Testament. You don't see it, but the blatant rejection of the implications for rejection of Messiah
basically that will be what ushers in the church age. But Jehovah shall again take up and complete his grand purposes with and for and through Israel. And we'll see that. That's Daniel. We have those weeks of Daniel that are kind of broken up, and we've got that in the last short period with which to fulfill, to complete that as we look at all the prophetic body of the Old Testament, looking ahead to the second coming. So yeah, this is we could spend weeks on this, guys, and maybe Zechariah would be a good book to study. Yeah. I can say I've not done a detailed study. I've never had a class on it per se. It was always a summary class, but it seems like there's a lot here that we would benefit from, especially as we, I think, get closer. And honestly, the differences between Baptist theology, which is literal, there is going to be a rapture, there is going to be a visible physical return. To be able to explain these things doesn't change how we live. Well, yes and no, in the sense that we should be urgent about what we're doing. We should not be sitting back and waiting for other people to do things, but we need to be busy about things. But we should have confidence in what God's going to do. But yeah, that might be, we may do that. I'll look for a good study on that. Okay. Or at least maybe just a kind of a reading and then talk through these things and then stop when we see, okay, what's the symbolism of Myrtle, do keyword searches back and forwards and within this context and what has already been said. So certainly there's been several centuries, millennia of discussion on these things that we stand on the shoulders of. Okay, let's do it to do it. The book of Malachi. So we come to the last book of the Old Testament. Malachi means my messenger. He prophesied after the days of Nehemiah. The condition of the Jews had become deplorable. We see him as the bridge between the Old and the New Testaments. It'll be 400 years of silence between Malachi and John the Baptist crying, one crying in the wilderness, John 1:23. And what a great way to end the Old Testament. Indeed, you can study the Old Testament. It's all about bringing Messiah. When God selects a nation, he selects within that nation the path through whom he's going to bring Messiah. He puts the nation in the land where Messiah will be born, etc., etc., etc. It all points to that one that's going to come. The need for something greater than the law for people to live by. We need the grace that Christ is going to bring. We need the ultimate forgiveness that comes through Christ's sacrifice, and not man's sacrifice. All these things in the Old Testament point up to the coming of Christ. So no surprise, the last book, and written chronologically last, will be, Behold, he shall come, as our central message. So the structure of the book, we'll see the love of God stated, the love of God scorned. Interesting little discussion happens in the text there, and the love of God is shown. And so let's look at the love of God stated. Malachi 1:1-5, it says, I have loved you, saith the Lord. And if we go to Malachi, I've highlighted this in my online Bible, but it's an interesting thing to put. If you're to break this down, I'll just read this. The burden of the word of the Lord to Israel by Malachi. Basically, this is God saying, I have loved you, saith the Lord. And the people's response is different color of highlight. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Isn't it kind of impertinent? God says, I've loved you. And the people will say, how have you loved us? That's pretty cheeky. And God will go on. Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Whereas Edom saith, we are... Now this is going to be another people responding back to God. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall build. Now God talking, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. So there's this back and forth discussion going on, and he's going to hint at this. So So the Israels will come back with questions. And these questions really, these questions came from irritated people who said that God had failed to prove his love. Here, he has the 7 questions here, nicely broken out. So 1:2, where hast thou loved us? 1:6, wherein have we despised thy name? We were just getting to that. Wherein have we polluted thee? Wherein have we wearied him? Wherein shall we return? And wherein have we robbed thee? Well, in your tithes and your offerings, you bring your second best. Wherein have we spoken against thee? And so you could, it's just a good little outline to comb through those chapters to see how God responds to each of them, and it's a good way to study it. So we'll see that. The love of God is scorned. Certainly, God brings that out. He looks at the hearts, and the love of God was scorned by the prophets. Malachi 1:6 through 2:9. They had cheated the Lord through lame and sick offerings. By the prophets, 1:6. Let's read that. The son honoreth his father, and the servant his master. If then I be a father, wherein is my honor? If I be a master, wherein is my fear? Saith the Lord of hosts unto you. O priests that despise my name, and ye say, wherein have we despised thy name? Yeah, I think that should be priests instead of prophets there. In number 5, the love of God was scorned by the priests. That's because it's all about the offerings, and they're bringing their second best, and it's all centering around the worship. So that should be priests there. So they cheated the Lord through the lame and sick offerings. They gave less than their best. I kind of like how God puts a point on it. Bring your old one-eared, two-legged sheep to your governor and say, here's a present. How will he take it? Now we're doing this to God. Watch out. So the love of God was scorned by the people, first by cheating their brother, and then through intermarriage, verse 11, then by their immorality, and then their insincerity, and then robbing God, and then speaking against the Lord. And so God lays it out very clearly. It's a very, very harsh rebuke to the nation. And yet he shows his love. I like Malachi 3. Always when it gets dark, said God shows the way back. Behold, I will send my messenger, and he shall prepare the way before me. And the Lord whom ye seek shall suddenly come to his temple. Even the messenger of the covenant whom ye delight in. Behold, he shall come, saith the Lord of hosts. God's still going to send the deliverer. What's it say in Romans? And while we're yet sinners, Christ died for us. What a thing. So God shows his love first by sending his son. We just touched a little bit on that. And this would be announced by John the Baptist. He says, compare 3:1 with Matthew 11:10. So we've read 3:1, Matthew 11:10. It's getting shorter to flip into the New Testament now. I like that.
This is he whom it is set written, behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare the way before thee.
Okay, so we can write that down, little notes there. His second coming will be introduced by Elijah, the prophet. He points us to Malachi 4, 5, and 6. And then, let's do this real quick. Mary, Luke 1:11. Stephen, do you want to take Matthew 11:10 and through 14 and let John? So Malachi chapter 4, 5, and 6 says, yes, behold, I will send you, last 2 verses of the Old Testament, behold, I will send you Elijah, the prophet, before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, and he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their fathers, lest I come and smite the earth with a curse.
Luke 1:11. And there appeared unto him an angel of the Lord, standing on the right side of the altar of incense. And when Zechariah saw him, he was troubled, and fear fell upon him. But the angel said unto him, Fear not, Zacharias, for thy prayer is heard, and thy wife Elizabeth shall bear thee a son, and thou shalt call his name John. And thou shalt have joy and gladness, and many shall rejoice at his birth. For he shall be great in the sight of the Lord, and shall drink neither wine nor strong drink, and he shall be filled with the Holy Ghost, even from his mother's womb. And many of the children of Israel shall he turn to the Lord their God. And he shall go before him in the spirit and power of Elias, to turn the hearts of the fathers to the children, and the disobedient to the wisdom of the just, and to make ready a people prepared for the Lord.
Okay. Matthew 11.
For this is he of whom it is written, Behold, I send my messenger before thy face, which shall prepare thy way before thee. Verily I say unto you, among them that are born of women there hath not risen a greater than John the Baptist. Notwithstanding he that is least in the kingdom of heaven is greater than he. And from the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffereth violence, and the violent take it by force. For all the prophets and the law prophesied until John. And if ye will receive it, this is Elias, which was for to come.
John 1:21.
And they asked him, What then? Art thou Elias? And he saith, I am not. Art thou that prophet? And he answered, No.
So it's one of those kind of things. Was he physically Elijah? No, he wasn't. But he did come in the ministry of Elijah. But what does Jesus say? If you can receive it. That's kind of where that hinges on. Okay. Second, so he first will be coming, will be introduced by Elijah. And then second, you'll remember his own Malachi 3, 16 and 17. He says, And then they that feared the Lord spake often one to another, and the Lord hearkened and heard it. And a book of remembrance was written before him for them that feared the Lord, and that thought upon his name. They shall be mine, saith the Lord of hosts, in that day when I make up my jewels, and I will spare them as a man spareth his own son that serveth him. So how precious, as he writes here, how precious to God are his own. That book of remembrance will contain those jewels of the Lord. The Old Testament closes with the paramount thought, He is coming. And unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness arise with healing in his wings. Malachi 4:2. And he takes from the book of the Revelation, even so come Lord Jesus. Wow. So, I preached through Malachi a few years ago. Maybe it's worth digging through Malachi again. I don't know. So how much do we remember? So who are the three post-captivity prophets?
Haggai, Zechariah and Malachi.
Good old Haggai. What is the main message of Haggai? These
Consider your ways and build a house.
by years are consider your ways. Yes, that's what you said. Also, the prophecies of Isaiah and Zechariah give us more than any other prophets on the subject of
The Messiah.
Jesus. And what is the theme of Zechariah?
Prophecies.
I am jealous for Jerusalem.
Okay, jealous for Jerusalem. And when did Malachi write his prophecy?
400 years before.
400 years before Christ.
Yeah, after the days of Nehemiah. After the days of Nehemiah.
Yes, after that's time-wise. I did pull, if anyone, I was starting to place these guys and their ministries together, so I got a kind of a chronology. I'm not sure it really helps at all, but of when they prophesied and when they did their things. But it's interesting to see how these two weave into the book of Ezra so nicely. And Ezra might be considered a book of history, not a prophecy, but a point that they kind of go together. Yeah. As you're reading through Ezra, to stop there at chapter 5 and then read the message and then look at what's going on in the nation. And then continue through. It's